ECSI fans, you want to revolutionize your sports investing habits? Allow me to tell you about WagerWire. WagerWire is an app that helps you become a superior bettor by allowing you to sync all your sports books and track all your bets in one place. See your current action, your betting history, and stats. You could also sign up for sports books and collect bonus offers. Follow them at WagerWire on X, as it's the best account on the platform. Head to App Store or Play Store now and search WagerWire and
Check this out. We got a great show coming your way.
From the ECSI Sports Studios, the #1 sports information program in America, the Breakfast Bankroll, with your host, the sports broker, Jeff Dawson.
Good morning, sports fans from all around the globe. I am the co-host, Jeff Dawson, East Coast Sports Investors, and it's that time of the week for our breakfast bankroll re-entry Monday. Yes, I do know that Felger and Maz use that all the time, but it's our version, myself and Scotty Webb, live from Tampa, as we talk about what we saw over the weekend in college football and the NFL. Give you a little preview on what our eyes see tonight. Detroit travels to Baltimore. Just from an eye perspective, looks like a little late money coming in on the Lions right now. 4 minus 15 cents at Circa with a 53. Good morning to Mr. Benson and Mr. Stevens there. Scotty released some plays we showed you over the weekend. I think undefeated. We're going to bring those up as well. Our goal here, very simply, is to get you here Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Fridays, and we're going to talk about what we're seeing throughout the opening lines, the numbers released, the overnights, and as they progress throughout the week. Only you have to deal with 3, 4, 5 days of movement versus opening week where there was 3 months. So first and foremost, a shout out to our proud sponsors and partnerships. It's WagerWire. Head on over to Google Play, download the app. It is free. And AtlantaSteaksandSeafood.com. Terry Smith, go introduce yourself over on Facebook, and then head on back to AtlantaSteaksandSeafood.com. Steaks, seafood, chops, appetizers, wines. Terry's got it all. 4 subscription plans as well. I get it. Set it and forget it. Every 30 days, Terry will deliver the package which best suits your eating habits. The only thing that you'll need is a spare propane tank. I'm debating here. Scotty is in backstage right now. You know what? I'm just going to talk right now for a couple quick seconds, and then I will have something further throughout the week. I was away on assignment, as I like to say, Friday through Sunday in Salem with Food Truck Festivals of America, Anthony Pepe, our biggest event on the East Coast. I was kind of away from social media, and I got a text yesterday saying, I assume you saw what was out there, and I wasn't aware. Real good friend, Mr. Dave Sharapan, as everyone knows him here, Sportsbook Consig, passed away Saturday night. I was real close with Dave. Dave, you know him on social media, always smiling. Dave opened up a lot of doors for me, introduced me to a ton of people. Sports Grid introduced me to Jeffrey Benson and Derek Stevens at Circa. Every time I would go to Vegas, Dave would pick me up at the airport, bring me to my hotel. We'd go out to lunch. We would go to his house. We would. I was able to meet his girls. I'd meet his wife. We'd go to volleyball games, softball games. We'd go out to the Omelet Cafe after. I was able to take him and his girls to their first game at Fenway Park. I'm still in shock. I'm still numb. I'm not doing him justice right now. I'll be talking about him throughout the week. Thoughts and prayers go out to his wife and his 3 girls. As I said in my tweet, will be missed, never forgotten. He'll be high above courtside now, rooting for all of us here in some lanes that we know are murky and real shitty now. So rest in peace, Dave. I'll be talking about you. I still got your settings. I got our pictures here backstage. They'll never get taken down, trust me. So love you, and we'll catch up soon. So without further ado, let's bring him in. Let me change over to here. Mr. Scotty Webb. What's up, Scotty?
Hey, man. It's I just keep seeing things on Twitter this week, and the things on Twitter are all about, hey, Daniel Berry Sports, how you doing, brother? And they say this is the best week, right? You've got a big golf event, right, going on.
The Ryder Cup, yep.
You've got Major League Baseball that's wrapping up, and there's a lot of I shouldn't say a lot. There's several meaningful series and several meaningful, to get into the playoffs. And then you've got some super good football games on Saturday. So this is a great weekend. And for me personally, it's Halloween weekend. I got to put Halloween stuff out on Saturday. So it is what it is, and I think it's a busy week for everybody. But at the same time that it's a busy week, you mentioned Dave Sherapan, and I don't really know Dave as well, obviously, as you do. I've talked to him maybe once, maybe twice. Anyway, all that being said, there's a lot of things going on in the world, and I think most people should just take the time, no matter what's going on in your life, to recognize the people that are around you and, thank them for being around you, because, truthfully, the people that you associate with need to be loved, and they need to feel loved, and not be taken for granted, because, they might not be here tomorrow.
Yeah, we're not guaranteed tomorrow, as we know that. I always try to stay positive. I thank my lucky stars every morning. I wake up and the feet hit the ground. We're gifted another 24 hours, and it's a gift. And what are you going to do with that gift? And for me, every 24 hours is a gift. I've been taking it as a gift for a long time now. As some of you guys know my story. If you don't, reach out. I'll tell you my story. I'm not ashamed of my story at all. You learn from your mistakes, which I did at a young age, and as someone that had hair, someone that thought he knew everything when he knew nothing, and traveled down some dangerous roads throughout my path to get here today. So I want to bring this up to start. We started some in-pocket plays throughout the week. Again, we're trying to buy some numbers that we had that we thought we could get ahead of the market. You found some edges. You found some pockets to invest in. And if my memory serves me correct, let me see here. TCU -7. Miami of Florida was -7.5. I told you guys I had fat thumbs there. Maryland +10. Ole Miss -11.5. If I am correct, sir, that's a 4-0 card. Am I correct?
Yeah, that was a good one. It doesn't always go that way, and I'm not necessarily here to tell you that everything that I bet on is going to win. So don't think that's going to happen all the time. But at the same time, that's the goal, right? The goal of this show is to find numbers and find spots where, and remember, we bet those games on Wednesday. I think the show came out on Thursday, but I bet them on Wednesday. And the games didn't play till Saturday. So the reality is you don't have to wait to go to the window. And the truth be known, the one game that I did bet that's not on our show, that we didn't do a show on Friday, but I didn't bet it till Saturday anyway. I bet Missouri to cover 9.5 because the number went from 11 to 10, and then we're down to 9.5. I thought that was a good play. It's getting the best of the number, and sure enough, the Missouri kicker missed an extra point, and they won by 9, not 10. So that's the one game. That's one game I lost in college football. So anyway, all that being said, I think the goal isn't necessarily to sit here and go, hey, look at what we did and pump our chest, even though we do want to provide value and we do want to provide betting opportunities that you can actually take action on. The reality becomes is these are the spots we saw, or I saw in this case, and you didn't steer me off of them, so that was good. And then the reality becomes is we took action and made those bets, and because we did that, it was a pretty good week.
Yeah, and again, from an eye test, I was my eye test was in Salem Saturday and Sunday. I was following stuff when I could. On the phone, I was able to do a lot more Sunday. We were a lot slower Sunday than we were Saturday. I couldn't even lift my head on Saturday there. But from an eye test, Scotty, what you saw on Saturday in college football, anything shock you there? Other than Clemson, Dabo put a fork in them. Syracuse, this is a Tennessee team that opening week went in and put up like a 50 burger. People have been scoring at will versus Syracuse. Dabo had been in that spot before, and now, if I'm right, 1-3 now. They're done. The season's over. Dabo now trying to bring up his past resume: 8 ACC champs, 4 Final Fours, 2 championships. The list is endless. But we're in a world of what have you done for me lately? I told everyone that wanted to listen. I didn't see 1 second of the game, but I did tell you this. History usually repeats itself, and until you can break through and stop that, it's going to keep repeating itself. And I'm talking about Nebraska. 2.5 they were getting against Michigan. They have not won that game, that spot against a big opponent, whether it's on the road or at home, to push them through. That would put them in a spot where you lose to Ohio State, you maybe lose late to Iowa. 2 losses now with losing to this Michigan team. And listen, Michigan fought Oklahoma tough. And this Oklahoma team's for real, by the way. And then they come into Nebraska again, 2.5-point favorites. And Michigan did, and they go on and prevail there. Thoughts on Saturday, Scotty?
Yeah, let me just kind of go and scroll down through my list of things here. I think there's a couple things. North Carolina, Bill Belichick stuff, I don't think is going well for him. UCF and Scott Frost, they're not a really good school. I shouldn't say school. They're not a good football team. But North Carolina is terrible. So I think that's one that kind of stands out to me a little bit to say, hey, that I don't want to say that experiment's over, but I think when you don't have the right kids, I shouldn't say the right kids, you don't have the quality of the players that you're really looking for, it's hard to compete in the bigger conferences. I think when you kind of scroll down further, I think one of the things that stood out to me was how bad Illinois got beat. That was a total beat down. Indiana just destroyed that team. Indiana's got a really good quarterback. So that was the first time either really one of these two teams played an opponent that was halfway decent. I think Illinois got proven to be a fraud, and I think Indiana maybe not so much. So we'll see how that kind of goes the next couple of games that they come up with, forward looking at, projections and different things. Indiana is still supposed to lose to Penn State. They're supposed to lose to Oregon. So I don't think Indiana is going to be there at the end. But at the same time, they looked really good against a team like Illinois. So keep that in mind as you kind of look at stuff. I think Duke got a good rebound. They beat NC State, and then they played pretty well in that game. Duke was supposed to be a good team this season, and NC State, they had two good quarterbacks in that matchup. I thought that as I kind of scroll down through here, I bet on Maryland. Maryland was a 10-point underdog and dominated the game. They beat Wisconsin straight out and just beat them right up and down the field. So, that tells you, Wisconsin is not, the old Wisconsin, Barry Alvarez, Wisconsin, right? I mean, they're not able to ground and pound and run the football the way they thought they could. I thought that Colorado played a pretty good game, even though it was Wyoming, but they got the quarterback maybe situated. The kid they brought in from UTSA played a lot better. Not from Liberty, that's where they brought him in from. He played a lot better. Did some good things. And the surprising game to me of all the games was Texas Tech and Utah. Texas Tech lost their quarterback in that game, and their backup quarterback came in and played better than the starting quarterback. And it's a hard place to play in Utah, and they dominated that game. And not only dominated, they destroyed Utah. And all you heard about coming into that game was, how good Utah's offense was going to be with the new quarterback that they have, and all the different things that they were doing. And they just Texas Tech just beat them up. So I think that's a school you want to watch, Texas Tech. Another game that. Let's see, where is I thought Memphis was a surprise, beating Arkansas. Of course, that was last second kind of thing. But I wanted to say this last week, but I didn't get a chance to. But I get a chance to say it this week. Memphis is projected to not lose any games now. And if they're projected not to lose any games, they're going to be the Power Five or whatever you call that, the G5 or whatever. They're going to be the winner, and they're going to be in the playoff. And I don't know what their odds are to get into the playoff, but you should start looking at that, because that's a school that they got to play Navy. They got to play some teams. They got to play South Florida. But they're projected to win those games. They're not projected to lose those games. And I think Memphis is a school that if you got in front of it right now, I think you're going to find that you're going to get a good number on them to make the playoffs. As the Conference 5 winner. I thought, let's see if there was anything else that I kind of looked at in college football on Saturday that hit me. I didn't really see anything major. I thought San Diego State, not that this is this kind of in the weeds, but San Diego State destroyed California, and California has a good quarterback, young. He's a true freshman, and San Diego State's not a team that scores a lot of points, and they put up some points. So that was kind of an interesting spot there, which that was kind of how I saw the weekend. I didn't think there was, It was one of these spots, Jeff. I thought this weekend there was only a few interesting games, nothing super major. I thought that Michigan-Oklahoma game was a big, not Michigan, Nebraska was a bigger game. And to be honest, the Nebraska quarterback did pretty well in the game. And I thought that the Michigan quarterback, he didn't grade out very good in the game. But if you can't stop somebody from running the football, you can't win the game. And Michigan ran all over them. So I think that's a problem that I didn't expect, and you're going to have to fix as you go down the road here. Michigan plays USC coming up, so that'll be a pretty good game.
It's funny, the two things that stuck out to me again, that you couldn't slow down the Indiana-Illinois number. This was a number that opened up, I thought, a little high, and it kept moving and moving and moving and moving and moving. And I left the Indiana team total, of course, on the desk there. Sometimes when a number looks wrong, I try to figure it out, but usually 9 out of 10 times they're correct. And a beatdown, as you said, Indiana to Illinois. I had the Arkansas team total over on Saturday, and of course the fumble inside the 9 or 8 late there cost us the team total there. This week in college, the marquee games everywhere. We'll get to them potentially today. If not, we'll be back here Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday all week as well. NFL, not for long. Guys, I've been saying this for a while now, and I'm not blaming Drake May, but what I'm trying to explain is this. You either got it or you don't. And I'm going to bring up J.J. McCarthy for a second because he didn't have it for 3 quarters opening day in Chicago. And next thing you know, he scored 3 touchdowns, and they come all the way back and they beat the Bears. And then, of course, he didn't have it again. Quote-unquote got hurt, got benched, and then in comes Carson Wentz, and they put up a bazillion, the every other week. That's the Jake Browning that I knew, and that I knew the Minnesota D was pretty good. But my point is, Patriots, again, I didn't see one snap. 5 turnovers. Drake had the ball late to tie the game, bring it to overtime. They did not get it done. So the Patriots fall, and the Steelers on that every other week go to 2-1 there. Chicago puts a beat down on Dallas again. CeeDee Lamb gets hurt in the first quarter, tries to come back. He's done. Don't know how long he'll be out for. The Packers 10-0 lead going into the fourth quarter. Everyone anointed them NFC champs already, and Browns come all the way back, tie it, and win it. So that anyone that used them in the Survivor contest or any of your suicide pools is out there. The Eagles, just business as usual. And if you had the Rams plus 3.5, lining up a field goal for the win, down 1 blocked field goal, and guy doesn't fall on it. He picks it up and runs to the house, lands on 7, so that'll be the bad beat of the year. Giants just being the Giants. Russell Wilson just being who he is at this point of his career. Kansas City offense still struggling, but a big win there to get off the schneid here, and they host the Ravens this week, which will be a big game there. Thoughts on the NFL, Scotty?
I thought that this was a tricky week because, if you look at your Twitter timeline and all that stuff, all you see is, well, this team is 0-2 and they're back against the wall and they're an underdog and they're going to, cover the spread, blah, blah, blah. Well, some of that happened. Some of it didn't happen. I think that when you look at the outcomes of these football games, so for example, if you look at, you talked about what was the game you just talked about? You talked about the game with Pittsburgh, and you talked about the game with the Patriots, and I get a thing that gets sent to me via email of the recap of all these football games. And the key things that stand out to me in all of the games that lose and all the games that win. The Pittsburgh Steelers offense versus the New England defense in the red zone, they were 94th percentile, which means that's good. I mean, out of 100, they're right up. That's really good. And the offense for New England against the defense for Pittsburgh, they ranked 6th, which is terrible, right? I mean, that's a terrible number. So pay attention to how teams work in the red zone because if they don't do well in the red zone, so they're just not going to be a team that a lot of times is super successful. They just won't be able to get there. And it's, you can have efficiency between the, from the 30 to the 30, but if you're not scoring touchdowns in the NFL, you're not going to win. I mean, look what the Rams did. They kicked a lot of field goals in that game and thought that they were going to win the game. And obviously that didn't happen for them. So I think when you start to think about it, here's another game like Jacksonville was in the red zone 70th percentile, which is upper half, right? Top almost top 25%, and they played Houston, which was 22nd, which is bottom 80% of the league. And what was the score? 17-10. The difference in the game is what they did when they had to score in the red zone. So
I think in the NFL that's a super important number to be looking at is how does a team operate when not 30 to 30. I mean, you can look at all these teams that do well from the 30 to the 30, and it just goes on and on and on to just kind of go right down the line of all these teams. It's the red zone, red zone, red zone. So I thought it was a good win for the Chargers. I mean, the Chargers are now 3-0. And you know what? They've swept the AFC West. And when you think about it, that's a pretty amazing thing because they beat the Chiefs and now they beat the Broncos. And I don't think they were expected to beat either one of those two teams. And they beat them both. So at the end of they got to be in the catbird seat in that division. And looking at this coming week, right? Where is Kansas City plays Baltimore. So, Kansas City's not expected to beat Baltimore. So, Kansas City might go 1-3. Denver plays, where is Denver? Denver plays at home against Cincinnati. So they'll be favored to win that game. But I can't tell you that the Chargers don't look like the best team in the AFC West right now. And maybe even, I don't think they're as good as Buffalo. I don't think they're as good as Baltimore. But who else is above the Chargers other than those two teams? I don't think there's anybody in the AFC that's above the Chargers.
No, and again, big win for the Chargers. You said they start the year in Brazil. They win there. They go Monday night to Las Vegas. They win there. And then Denver had their opportunities. Seeing some regression with Bo Nix right now. Time maybe to fix that. We don't know what Jaden Daniels' status is moving forward there. And guys, I'm a numbers guy. I don't care about the logo in the front. I don't care about the names on the back. I'm a numbers guy, but I do watch in the eye test, and I nailed this early on the Houston Texans. They opened up in L.A. against the Rams. Tough defense. Early lead, couldn't hold on. Why? Because they can't score. Then they come back home against Tampa. Baker Mayfield has it. He has the it factor. Look what he did in Atlanta opening day. Look what he did in Houston on Monday night. Look what, again, he did. He knows now he has matured. He's learned from his mistakes, and he finds ways to win the ball games. And hats off to Baker as they win last night. Houston Texans are in disarray. Their offensive line is not good. They have no steady threat at running back. They have one wide receiver, Nico Collins. Christian Kirk came back, but what's the problem? They can't score. And now, is it Stroud? Is it just a combination of all that? We saw the regression in Stroud last year. Well, we're seeing it through 3 games. That they limp now to 0-3 there. Scotty, as I said in the opener, Detroit travels to Baltimore tonight, 8:15 kickoff. The opening numbers. Baltimore 5.5. I saw some 6s. I'm using that as a 6 with a 50.5. Currently at the circa 53 with a 4 minus 15 cents, which means the next move at the circa will be to 4.5. I'm seeing some 4.5s across the market. The Superbook, Caesars, BetMGM, South Point. Again, opened up at 6. Why did it open up at 6? I'll tell you why it opened up 6. They needed Lions money. Now 4 is one of those key numbers. 3, 4, 7. They got it down to 4, 4.5 with 53.5. People remember what they saw last with the Lions as they put up a 50 burger over the Bears last week, but opening week they went to Chicago. They went to Lambeau Field and the Packers and struggled. I have the mindset you're going to see an offense second to none at home throughout the year. I think they're going to struggle when it comes to the road. Maybe I'm wrong. We'll see here. They were in this spot not too long ago. Opened up in Kansas City. 6-point underdogs, not only covered, but won that game outright. Thoughts on tonight's game, Scotty?
Yeah, I'm sending you an email. Maybe we can post this up in just a second once I can get it here. How's come I don't have it set up this way? let me. The thoughts that I have in this game basically is that I like Detroit at home. I don't ever like Detroit on the road. I shouldn't say don't ever. That's not the right words. I think Detroit is a much faster, much better environment at home than they are on the road. I think they're slower. I think that they're more methodical. I think their offense doesn't quite feel like it's as in motion as it is, on grass or just outdoors. And I think Baltimore's, now I gotta be honest, I thought Baltimore's defense was pretty good, but I haven't seen Baltimore, that Buffalo game, they let them come right back down the field, so I wasn't real impressed with that. But Baltimore's offense is just unbelievable. So they rank number one in EPA in offense. They got the number one quarterback. Their team BBOA is fourth. It's just a matter of can they cover the number or not, and do they have the motivation to cover the number, and what can the Lions hold in there? I think this is a Baltimore spot. I don't think theoretically it's an over spot too, but I don't want to go over because the number's kind of up there. So I tend to think this is a good spot for Baltimore. I don't know if you're going to see fours. If you get fours, that's great. If you have to pay 4.5, I know it's a key number, which is what I'm trying to send you, Jeff. There's a new number that's as valuable to a 4, maybe even more valuable based off of the last couple of years. And I would have never said this. I would never in a million years. So that's why it shocked me. That's why I kept it. 5. Let me just pull it up for a second. 5 had 7.4% of the 7.4 of the results landed on 5 last year. 7.4, and 2.9 landed on 4. So almost 3 times as many landed on 5 than did on 4. And of course, 6, 3, and 6, and 3 and 7. Those numbers, 3, 6, 7. Those are the bigger numbers. But between like 4 and 5, look, 4 is going away. 4, the year before it was 6.34 and for 4s, 6.3% of them. 5.5 for 5. So it's kind of right in that same neighborhood. And then the year before it was 6.3 and then 7.7 on 5. Look, I think what's happened is the 2-point conversion, the longer field goals, the stuff, or not longer extra points, things like that have changed the 4. I'm not so sure 4 is the big. I'm not so sure 4 is that super big of a key number anymore. I almost think 5 is the key number. And to be honest, if you got 4.5, that to me would mean you're under the key number. You bet it at 4.5. Don't worry about the.
No, and I agree. And the K balls for the kickers. These guys are making 50, 55, 60 yarders with their eyes closed. The thoughts for going for 2. The missed extra points. There's a lot of reasons. So good sharp eyes there on the 5s as well. Scotty, a big week in college football. And I want to just jump over to here. Where do I have it here? I'm going to add it over here. And when I say big week, I'm talking, the headliners of headliners here. I'm going to pull up some numbers here. Let's go to football. Let's go to college. I'm going to go here. Just some opening numbers with the eye test here. Florida State travels Friday night to Virginia. Florida State, 7-point favorites at Virginia. TCU at Arizona State. Arizona State, 2.5-point favorites over this TCU team that's playing great ball. Houston travels to Oregon State. Should be a defensive Houston slow down the weak Oregon State offense. Under over is only 48.5 here. But on Saturday, bounce back spot maybe for Utah as they travel to West Virginia. Notre Dame at Arkansas opened at 6. Notre Dame -6 now. Arkansas is 5.5 at FanDuel, 6 everywhere else. Talked about Cal. They travel cross country to BC. I'll be working that game. BC 6.5-point favorites there. Yep, guys, I'm getting to the big ones. Trust me. Indiana, off of their amazing performance. 7.5-point favorites at Iowa. Yeah, what's the reason behind that? Well, Iowa doesn't have a good offense, so they're expecting Indiana to score. Over open at 50.5, now 48.5 across. Louisville travels to Pittsburgh. Louisville, 3.5-point favorite there. Let me get to some of the good ones, guys. Yep, I'm getting there. Trust me, I promise. LSU at Mississippi. I'm a little surprised here. Mississippi 1.5-point favorites against LSU. USC travels to Illinois. USC 6.5 again. We remember what we saw last there. Keep an eye on Illinois. Here we go, guys. Auburn travels to Texas A&M. Opened at 7.5. Now Texas A&M 6.5. Oregon, Penn State. Penn State opened at 3.5. Still 3.5 there. I know a lot of people that will be on Oregon there. Alabama travels to Georgia. Georgia opened at 3.5. Now 3. I know a lot of people will be on Alabama there. Ohio State travels to Washington, opened at 9.5. Ohio State 8.5. And the late game, which is be a fun one, BYU travels to Deion Sanders primetime in Colorado. BYU opened up at 5.5, now 6.5, Scotty.
Yeah, I think, we talked about this. Now, I sent you the email. I don't know if the link works. So if the link doesn't work, I sent you a DM in your Twitter feed, so maybe you can pull it up that way for that chart. Anyway, I think one of the things that is interesting to start talking about this time of year is, most of this stuff is all done through power ratings, right? You've got a certain number set for a team. And then their home field advantage is this and whatever, and you start looking at what is the number, because you take one and subtract it from the other one and you get a line. So the question though that I kind of come across sometimes is well, some of these teams don't do what you think they're going to do, so you have to make adjustments, and you have to. So, but how much do you adjust, and did you adjust too far, or did you not adjust too much, not enough? So some of these teams that would fit into some of that category, for example, Illinois was set up to be like a top 10 school in the AP poll. Maybe they're a top 25 team regarding the people that make lines and numbers and spreads. But how much do you adjust them off of a game against Illinois or Indiana where they just got totally throttled? Some people might adjust them a touchdown. Some people might adjust them 3 or 4 points. Some people might just say, well, that was a fluky thing. I'm only going to give them a 1-point adjustment. Well, I think that matters. And then you have to look at it and back that up with results, numbers, and stats, because the reality becomes is, for example, in this game, USC opened at 6.5, and still 6.5, might be 7 some places. Well, Kenny White has this number, Jeff. Illinois minus 0.5 point.
Mm-hmm.
So Kenny didn't adjust the number that far. And as you remember, we talked back show prior, I didn't have Bill Connolly's numbers. I got his numbers now. So Bill Connolly's numbers, when he ran them, he's got a 34-26 with USC. So he's got it as an 8-point game for USC. So I think that you're going to have to start, as someone who looks at these games, you're going to have to start understanding the matchups of the games and what's real and what isn't real, right? So, when I looked at, for example, this last week, the game with Tulane and who did they play? They played Ole Miss, and I said the minus 11.5 was good, and of course they destroyed them. But the reality of that game was Tulane haven't played anybody. They have a decent quarterback, but they didn't match up. The matchup wasn't right. Tulane's got a running quarterback, and Mississippi could stop that. And the defense for Tulane couldn't stop the run, and Mississippi can run the ball with the best of everybody. And then their quarterback has done very well 2 games in a row. So
the matchups matter. So I haven't had a chance, obviously, to do any of that kind of work yet. But I think that you really do need to look at this stuff and go, how far do you drop Kansas State, right? Kansas State hasn't played very well. And what do you do with certain teams like USC? USC's been beating everybody, but USC hasn't played anybody. So where is the happy medium to that kind of stuff? And as you're looking at it, and I think what you're going to find is data will give you some of that. And if anything I can tell anybody about college football, and it works for pro football for the most part, you need to be able to find a way, and whatever your way is, find a way to determine who has the edge when it comes to the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. So if one team can dominate the line of scrimmage on defense, for example, the other team's not going to score. Like I look at this game with Ohio State and with Washington, and just looking at it, the number was 9.5. And I think it's like 8.5 or something like that, or 8 or whatever, 9, whatever, doesn't matter. So you just say it that way. Well, do you know that Washington's offense ranks like in the top 5 of all offenses in football? Well, their strength of schedule is 132 out of 135 schools. So, I mean, they played absolutely 100% nobody. For example, Kenny White's got to score 30-24 Ohio State. And then Bill Collins got a 31-21 Ohio State. Let me ask you a question. We've seen Ohio State's defense. We've seen them play Texas. Is Washington really going to score 21 or 24 points against Ohio State's defense? Ohio State didn't even play last week. You think that they've been just sitting on their thumbs, not gearing up to play this offense? They're not going to score that many points. So the question becomes is look at it from a logical point of view and start saying, okay, well, here's the number, but what makes sense in this number? Can they really do that? Can they score that many points? And I'm not saying that they won't or that they can't or whatever, but my opinion would be is I think it'd be pretty difficult for almost anybody to score that many points against Ohio State unless you're Oregon or Penn State or somebody that's got, upper echelon, not only talent, but plays the schedule to match. And they sit there and go there. But we'll see how all that plays out. I'm interested to see a lot of stuff. Like I want to see how good this Alabama quarterback is. He didn't have a good outing in game 1 on the road against Florida State, but he's been great ever since. Their defense have been great ever since. Georgia's defense has not impressed me at all. Their quarterback's been pretty good. But can they run the ball against Alabama? I don't know if they can or not. And if they can't pass the ball against Alabama, how are they going to win? So I think there's a lot of things that you got to look at that way to kind of go there. And the same thing like this LSU and Ole Miss game. Yes, both teams, and if I look at it, both teams have played decent schedules. But what I will say is that LSU has shown what on offense so far? I mean, have they shown anything? I don't think they can score hardly at all. Well, they're going to face a defense that's decent. It's not the best defense in the country by any stretch, but it's decent enough that I don't know what LSU's defense, who's been really good, is going to be able to do to stop Ole Miss on offense. So you got a lot of these kind of matchups this week where you sit there and you go, how does it really play out? What does it really look like? Well, the best way to know that is to look at the line of scrimmage. And, if I was going to look at the line of scrimmage on Ole Miss and LSU, I would almost think LSU has the advantage in the line of scrimmage. It's just they don't necessarily have the advantage on the skill positions, and kind of go from there. I thought some of these games, like, I think Kansas is a pretty popular thing because of Jaden Daniels, the quarterback for Kansas. Look, Cincinnati's played as good offense as anybody in the country almost, and people haven't talked about Cincinnati because, they haven't played a big schedule. So we'll see what that looks like. QBR rating, the Cincinnati quarterback's better than the quarterback for Kansas. So,
That's an interesting spot. And I think, based on what Kansas did last week, there might be some money coming in on Kansas against Cincinnati. So I think some of this you got to look at, Iowa State plays Arizona this week. What do you last remember about Arizona? Well, they dominated and beat somebody. I can't remember who they played, Mississippi State or somebody. They beat a team they weren't really supposed to beat, but they dominated and played pretty well. And now they get Iowa State. And we've seen Iowa State play slugfest after slugfest after slugfest. Well, Arizona has played the 121st schedule, and Iowa State's played the 75th. So they've played the tougher competition, the stiffer competition. It means more. So I think that those adjustments that you look for and the different things that you have, you got to look at it. Now, I wasn't expecting to make any bets today, and I probably won't make any bets today because I got to do my other research. We shared the website. What was it called? It's called Games on Paper, right? We talked about that. It's loaded. It's up. All the games are in there. So if you want to go there and you want to start previewing games, the data's there. So as we're doing these things and as things kind of come up, I think it's some interesting things. Now, I wasn't planning on even really like this last week. I didn't think Thursday and Friday college football games were the best, but Thursday and Friday this week, it's kind of interesting. Not Thursday so much, but Friday you got Florida State and Virginia. Florida State's -7. Kenny's got Florida State -1, and Bill Connolly says 28-25 Florida State. So is that really how that's going to play out? I don't know. I gotta break that down and look into that. TCU plays Arizona State. Arizona State opened -2.5. Kenny's got a -3.5. And Bill Connolly thinks TCU is going to win the game outright. So you got some different things there. So that's going to be a good game. Houston plays Oregon State. Well, how good is Houston? Houston's played the 109th easiest schedule. They opened at 12.5. Kenny's got the line at Houston -3. So that tells me there's a lot of value on the Oregon State side. Not that I really want to play a smelly dog like that, but then you just got to look at it and kind of go, how does all this play into how much adjustments were made, how much adjustments weren't made, and all that kind of stuff. I think teams like James Madison and Liberty, have they been adjusted properly? And like Liberty, I think has been overrated in a lot of these lines. You can make some money on. I think Memphis is probably underrated in a lot of lines. So how about this one, Jeff? Notre Dame is opened -6 against Arkansas. It's still -6. Kenny has it -3. Kenny has Notre Dame winning 34-31. Bill Connolly has Arkansas beating Notre Dame 31-29. What do you think of that?
Yeah, and again, must wins for Notre Dame. Big bounce back. We had their team total over on Saturday, easily cleared through that one. Again, guys, if I can stress this, there are some big games this week. Doesn't mean you have to play them. You can sit back on the couch, get your popcorn, get an extra battery in the remote, put up 4 games if you got YouTube, have some fun with it because, again, marquee games everywhere, and there's a couple great ones, as Scotty said on Friday night. We'll be here tomorrow, 9:15 a.m. We'll be here Thursday, 9:15 a.m. We'll be here Friday, 9:15 a.m. As Scotty always says, I'll add to it. Questions? Any questions, anything you'd like us to break down? If we don't have the information today, we'll have it tomorrow. We'll have it Thursday or Friday. That's what we're here for. We're here to inform and educate and then leave the entertainment for the 4-letter words, etc., etc., etc. Before we leave today, we got the final week of MLB. And there's 3 teams in the American League. The Tigers, the Guardians, and the Red Sox fighting for... Actually, and the Astros and the Mariners. Astros and Mariners, one of them's going to win the division. It looks like Seattle. But Houston, so let's go Guardians, Tigers fighting for the division, now just a half game. They played each other 3 times. Cy Skubal on the mound Tuesday. Then they play Wednesday, Thursday. Then those Tigers will come to Boston for the final 3 games of the year there. In the National League, the Mets on life support. Here come the almighty Reds and Tito. And the funny thing is, Arizona just a game back. So as we wrap up today, Scotty, take us through MLB, please.
Yeah, I think what's interesting about Major League Baseball is it takes 2 to tango, or in some cases 3 to whatever that would be. Tango 2. I don't know. So, and what I mean by that is over the last 30 games, the Guardians almost have to not lose. So what happened? They went 20-10. That's the best record in baseball with the Phillies. The Phillies were 20-10. So those are the best records in baseball. And the Detroit Tigers would have to really have a collapse. Well, guess what? They were 20-18 in the last 30 games. So they made up 8 games in those 30 days. So that's a big difference for them. The Mets are 13-17 in the last 30 days. And the Reds are 14-16. So the Reds could have really been in good spot. But they only made up 1 game in the last 30 days against them in the National League side. The Boston Red Sox, Jeff, where are the Boston Red Sox? The Red Sox were 17-13 in the last 30 days. I mean, it's not bad baseball. That's pretty good baseball. It's what's amazing is the run that Cleveland is on. The Houston Astros went 15-15. So Cleveland made up 5 games in that stretch. The hard part is to sit here and go, you got 6 games left. So in the last 10 games, this is kind of how it has to be. In the last 10 games, Cleveland's 10-0, right? 10-0. The Mariners,
They lost yesterday.
yeah, well, I just looking at it, it's probably not updated here, but the Mariners are 9-1. Look, we talked about this. The Marlins are going to play the Mets. The Marlins are 9-1. So, and I lived in Florida. I lived in West Palm Beach. I was really real tight with the Marlins. They used to come see me for other purposes, to get electronics and different things when I had different other things going on in my life. But I was in their clubhouse. I was in their dugout. I knew a lot of those guys. Anyway, point being is they hate the Mets. 100%. Florida Marlins hate the Mets. And the reason is on that side of the coast, a lot of snowbirds are from New York. And they come down and they root for New York and they hear all the Mets stuff. And it's a rivalry game, probably way one-sided, but it's a rivalry game for the Marlins. And if they can do anything to knock the Mets out of the playoffs, they're going to do it. So that's not cakewalk for the Mets. That's not easy for them. And then you start coming down here and you go, Tigers, they've been 2-8 in the last 10 games. The Mets 4-6. The Reds 6-4. So they picked up 2 games in the last little bit. There's 6 games to go. Even with 6 games to go, I got to make sure I say this the right way. One team can go 3-3. The other team can go 4-2, and they tie. So that means the other team has to go 5-1 to beat them. So it's not an easy thing, even though you sit there and go, it's 1 game. Look, if you really want to win, you got to be 5-1 to beat a team. It's a very difficult thing, even with 1 game to go. Now I say that assuming that these teams are going to be 500-ish. Well, if they're not 500-ish and they lose and they only win 2 out of the next 6 games, they're 2-4, and the other team wins 4-2. Shit happens. But my point basically is this: if you're the trailing team, you cannot lose a game. You just got to go win. You got to keep winning. I don't know. The Guardians swept the Tigers in Detroit. I don't think that's going to happen this time. I think Detroit's going to do a little better in this series.
if I had to say what I think I would say that I think that it's going to come down to, does Boston do well against Detroit? It might not even matter at that point. Do they do well against Toronto? It might not matter because Toronto's already in. So they might get a little bit of an advantage. Maybe not. I don't know. The Yankees are still trying to win the division. They're only 2 games behind. And I say only 2 games, like they got to win them all. So, but they play the White Sox, so that's a help, right? So that's a helpful thing for them. So I think as you kind of look at this and you start breaking it down, I think Cleveland's still got a rough way to go to get there. They just can't lose. Houston's in a spot where they got to win those games as well. They're not going to catch Seattle now. They just got buried against Seattle. So I think that it's going to be kind of interesting how it breaks down, but that's a lot of energy that they're spending in terms of Cleveland getting to where they are. I think they get into even if they got into the playoffs, they're out. So, and I don't mean that disrespectfully to Cleveland. It's just because they spent so much energy to get in. I think that they're going to I should say fizzle. I guess is the right word. They're going to fizzle. I'm going to use that word more often. Maybe it kind of sounds fun. But anyway, point being is, I think that they're just going to be in trouble as they make the playoffs if they get in. Whereas I think the Red Sox, I think Houston, I think they're just better teams. But we'll see.
Well, the funny thing with the American League, big if, and again, Cy Skubal goes Tuesday for the Tigers. If the Tigers can win this series 2-1, they will leave Cleveland with a 1.5 game lead. And why is that so big? Well, they have Cy Skubal scheduled Tuesday and potentially Sunday. If that game on Sunday is meaningless, that helps their playoff opportunity because then they can push Cy Skubal back, obviously, for their open and playoff game. Because I know a month, 6 weeks ago, we said he'd be resting, waiting for the wild card winner as Detroit was going to be the number 1 seed in the AL and how things change. It's baseball. Closing thoughts, and I want your closing thoughts on the National League. Here's a Mets team. By the way, hats off to Pete Alonso. What a year that guy has done. And Soto's had a quiet but good year. This Mets team, half game lead or tied now with the Reds and the Diamondbacks 1 game out. What do you see there? And the Brewers trying to hold on for the number 1 seed. Dodgers look like they're going to win the West. Closing thoughts on the National League, Scotty?
I think what's happened to the Mets is, their offense has cooled down to a degree. I talked about Pete Alonso all season. Well, Pete Alonso is his offensive WAR number is 29.2. Francisco Lindor is 24.2. So he hasn't. It used to be way different than that. It was way higher. And Soto has taken over. Soto has taken over the Mets. Soto is 50.2 on offense. I don't know that people really realize Juan Soto has 42 home runs. He has 117 runs. He has 104 RBIs. It's an amazing thing. And when you really start to think about it, that's their issue. Their issue becomes who else do they have? Nemo didn't really produce, right? Francisco Alvarez, who they thought was going to be the greatest catcher in the world, they sent him to the minor leagues for a while, came back up, hasn't done a whole lot. Jeff McNeil, Beatty, Sterling Marte, those guys just, whatever. They're just add-on players.
Vento was a bust.
Yeah, and I think here's their biggest problem though. If I switch this over and I go to pitching, and I go to let's go to there, and we go to starting pitchings. This is where their problem. Their best pitcher for the year has been David Peterson, and I get it. He's got a pretty good WAR numbers, 3.1, which is good. But at the same time that's good, he's got The next guy down is Clay Holmes, 1.7 WAR. The next guy down, Tyler McGill. He's he hasn't pitched in I don't know how long. Kodai Senga, 1.4. And now they're starting to throw, Nolan McLean, and they're throwing Brandon Sproat, and they're throwing Jonah Tang. They don't have any pitchers. So if you don't have any pitchers, you need to grab a great bullpen. Well, they don't have a great bullpen. And not only do they not have a great bullpen, if Juan Soto doesn't hit, they're not going to win. So this is why the Mets have struggled. The Reds, on the other hand, if you go pull up the Reds and you start looking at what has the Reds' problem been all year, and it's still a problem, is offense. What do they got going right now? Their pitchers are healthy, right? So they've got Andrew Abbott, 3.9 WAR, Brady Singer, 2.9 WAR, Hunter Green, 2.6 WAR, Lodolo, 2.5 WAR, Nick Martinez, 2.0 WAR. They've got the guys that can go out and limit how much runs they have to score every day. So they don't have to be a softball team to win these games, and they're not. The most surprising thing, if I got to switch this over, the most surprising thing to me about the Reds and about what people think about the Reds is, how great Ellie De La Cruz is. Well, Ellie De La Cruz is a 3.9 WAR guy. Okay, well, that's pretty good. But he's a 14.7 offensive WAR guy. We just talked about where Lindor was, 50, where Soto and Alonso are in the mid-20s. He's a 14.1 WAR guy, and by far he's the best hitter on that team. The next closest guy has 5.7, 5.9. That's TJ Friedl. So how are they winning these games? Well, their bullpen's been halfway decent, and they pitch. So that keeps them in these games, but we'll see if that's enough because, like I say, it takes two to tango. The deficiencies of the offense is being overcome in the long run by the pitching. And the same thing doesn't apply to the Mets. The Mets offense is struggling to keep up with the deficiencies of their pitching. And to be honest, I really hope they don't ever do anything with the Major League Baseball schedule. I want them to play 162 games forever. And the reason is for just stuff like this. You know what I mean? Like it makes it so that teams that make it in because the deficiencies are less or their things that are better are more. So I think when you kind of look at it from a perspective of the meaningfulness of the schedule, 162 games means everything because if you start limiting to 140 games, you're not going to see this. This isn't going to happen this way. You can still get by with bullshit stuff and get it in. When it's 106, that extra 22 games means a lot. And it just means that you got to be good to get there. And we'll see what happens at the end and whose deficiencies are there and whose aren't. It's amazing to me, Jeff, because all the preseason, all we did was talk about the Dodgers and how great they were. And now they don't have the best record, and they're not going to have the best record going in. And there's no dominant team to sit there and go, hey, look at this. I mean, the Toronto Blue Jays are the, quote, best team in the American League by winning percentage. And I'm not saying that they are or they aren't. I don't know that. I don't think that they're necessarily the best team, but they've got the best winning percentage, and they play in the American League, so they got East, so they got to play those good teams. So that means a lot. And I think when you start to think about kind of how this goes, my opinion is I think the Phillies are the best baseball team. I think they're the best.
No, I agree, and I don't even think it'd be a debate if Zach Wheeler didn't go down. We've been saying that now for a while. But their back end, the addition of Duran, their home field advantage, the veteran leadership, Schwarber playing for a contract. The list is endless. I can't wait. Next week we'll be talking playoff baseball. Who's in, who's out. We'll get the brackets, and you and I will have some fun here. And
we might have to do a separate show from football for that. I don't know.
Yeah. We'll have a bracket special where we'll break down the brackets and the divisions and the matchups, who we think will advance, etc., etc., etc. Tomorrow, 10:15 a.m., Andrew McGinnis will be back. Talk some CFL, some NFL. His Packers lost in Cleveland. See what's going on as NHL is practicing as we speak. Wednesday, myself and Scotty will be back around 9:15 to start the week here as well. Actually, let me backtrack. Me and Scotty will be here tomorrow at 9 as well. So busy week, full schedules here, a go Monday through Friday. Again, if you're just tuning in late and you haven't already, jump on over to YouTube at East Coast Sports Investors. Subscribe. It's free. We're almost at 12,000 subscribers as we speak. Come on back to X at EC Sports Investors. Myself, Scotty Webb at Webby20MLB. And, of course, rest in peace, Mr. Dave Sharapan. Thoughts and prayers go out to the Sharapan family, the 3 beautiful daughters, and his wife. From Jeff Dawson at EC Sports Invest. Messing up there. Scotty Webb at Webby20MLB. Wish everyone a blessed day, guys. Remember, it's a new week. Breathe. If you had a rough week, ECSI VIPs yesterday, 2-0 Steelers money line went outright in Foxborough. And Chicago Bears team total over. We get there kind of easily. Had a couple half-point losses throughout the week. Fumble by Arkansas. Missed field goal by Buffalo, etc., etc., etc. It's part of the process, guys. We'll take this week as we roll in with a 2-0 record. Meaning we ended the week 2-0 as we get ready for this week. So, guys, have a great, blessed day. Remember, hug your family. Call your mom and dad. If they're around, tell them you love them. We'll see you soon.